everyone, welcome back to Grounded Haven. Today I am going to be preserving up a bunch of local fresh peaches. Over the weekend, Erin and I went to a local orchard and we got more than a half bushel of peaches after setting some aside for eating fresh because obviously we are going to enjoy lots of these fresh while they are just freshly picked. I did also get a ton of extra just so that I could preserve some, and today I'm going to be canning a lot of them. I'm going to be doing canned peaches in syrup and also a batch of peach jam. Hopefully it's not too loud in here while I'm filming today. We do have quite a loud AC going on in the other room because it's pretty warm and humid today. I think it's like over 90% humidity. So this probably is not the best day for canning because that hot water bath is really going to release more moisture and humidity into the air. But it's gonna get done because we have all of these fresh, beautiful peaches and I want to preserve them up while they're at their prime, and I don't want them to start getting too soft and let them go to waste. So we are gonna get it done today even if it gets a little hot and humid in here. And I'm really excited because peaches are definitely one of our favorite fruits. I think they're Erin's favorite fruit. For me, I don't have a favorite fruit because I love all of them, but fresh local peaches are just so good. I feel like when you get peaches at the grocery store, it's always like a hit or miss. A lot of times they're like mealy, but these peaches are just so beautiful. We've been eating like 5 of them a day. They are just so good. So I am really excited to get them preserved up for the winter because it's going to be such a nice treat. So the first thing I need to do for canning my peaches, I'm gonna do the peaches in syrup first, and I need to blanch these peaches to get the skins off of them, and then we're just going to have them and take the pits out. So it's a pretty simple process. I do usually skip like the blanching step to remove the skins of a lot of things. I usually don't do that for my tomatoes when I'm canning them, either for diced tomatoes or sauce. And I actually think I've made peach jam last year without taking the skins off, and I was fine with that because I do blend it up with an immersion blender. But for canned peaches that you're doing in syrup, I really do think that you need to take that step to take the skins off. So I'm going to be doing that today, and that's the first thing we are going to do. I have this big bowl of peaches. I'm not exactly sure if I will need all of them. I have 7 pint jars in my water bath going right now just to sterilize them, and I think I have more peaches than will fit in 7 pint jars here. I would do more, but we are kind of out of pint jars because I've been canning so much this year. I don't think I have any other empty ones, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would do maybe like a dozen pint jars. So we'll see how much extra I have left at the end. And maybe I'll bring out some quart jars and can up some halved peaches in there. Otherwise, I'll just use the extra skinned peaches for my peach jam later on. I've got a pot of boiling water to blanch my peaches in, as well as a bowl of cold water on the side. For each of these peaches, I'm just going to score an X on the bottom of them with a paring knife and put them into the boiling water. And those probably need about 30 to 60 seconds in the hot water to get that skin to start releasing. And then I will move them into the cold water bath so that they can cool, and then we will peel them afterwards. Once those peaches are blanched, you can see how easily that skin just slips right off. I find that this is easiest with the peaches that are perfectly ripe. The ones that are a little underripe, the skin does tend to stick a little bit, and if that happens, I will try dunking it in the water for another 30 seconds. And if that doesn't work, then later on I will go in with a paring knife and try and get most of that skin off. Peaches are such a beautiful fruit. I love how even after you take that skin off, it has all of those beautiful like sunset-like colors, the yellows and the reds. And as you do this process, even though it's not my favorite thing to do, your kitchen will smell really amazing with all of those peaches. I am almost done peeling my peaches. I have one last batch of blanched peaches, but before I finish peeling those, I'm going to get started on the syrup that I need. And I am going to be hot packing these peaches in a medium syrup. So the entire process that I'm following is from this ball book. I will link it in the description box down below if you are unfamiliar with it. So there are two different options for canning peaches. You can raw pack them or hot pack them. Raw packing is just putting the uncooked peaches in a jar and then pouring the hot syrup over them. And hot packing is when you heat up your halved peaches in your syrup and then pack them into your jars. The reason I'm doing the hot pack method, even though the raw pack method does seem easier, is because I think the result turns out better. With raw packing, a lot of times the fruit that you are canning will kind of float to the surface by the end and there will be a lot of empty space in the jar. That's because a lot of fruits and vegetables have a lot of air cells in the flesh of the fruit, and by warming it in your syrup or liquid, it kind of ruptures those cells and then you're able to fit more of your fruit into your jar. So the first time I canned peaches, I did the raw pack method and the peaches did float to the top, and I just feel like you're not able to fit as many peaches into the jar. So this time I'm going to be doing the hot pack method. So with the raw pack method, you can choose from doing like a very light syrup, which has a lower ratio of sugar to water, all the way to a heavy syrup. It's really up to you. But for hot packing, the book says to do either medium or heavy syrup, so I'm going to be doing medium syrup today. I think the reason that you need a heavier syrup if you're hot packing is because since you're kind of like heating up the peaches in the syrup, they will release some of their own moisture and that will dilute the syrup. That's kind of my assumption, but I'm not really completely sure if that's right, but that's what the book says to do, so that's what I'm going to do today. So for the medium syrup, I need 5 cups of water and 3 1/4 cups of sugar. So now I can get that back on the stove and heating up while I finish up these peaches. This is the biggest peach I have ever seen in my life. It is massive. It's like the size of a softball. Now I'm just going to halve each of these peaches and take the pits out, and hopefully the pits come out okay. Oh, and I also have a bowl with a scale on the side. I'm going to weigh these out as I do it and aim for 8 to 10 pounds just so that I don't put too many of them in the syrup, and then the extras we can save for jam. This is kind of a messy affair because These peaches are like kind of wet and slippery now, but the pits are coming out okay, which is great. I don't even think that these are freestone peaches, but the pits come out really easily, which is awesome. I think that's like the worst thing about canning peaches. If you get peaches where the pits don't come out, it's a real pain in the butt. So as far as what we're going to use these canned peaches for, I really just like to eat them straight out of the jar. They're a nice like little fruit dessert all on its own in the winter. You can probably bake with them as well. I just don't bake a lot of like pies or things like that. But as a kid, I think my favorite thing was when you got those little like Dole fruit cups like in school lunches and things. I absolutely loved those. And of course, as a kid, I didn't realize that the liquid was usually syrup and I would drink it all up. But now I know better. I know that it's just sugar and I don't do that. But I do really like that you can use the syrup for other things. So when we open a jar of these canned peaches, we'll eat the peaches just on their own, and then I will save the syrup, and it makes the best addition for cocktails and drinks. We really love to use it in sangria. You can make like a white sangria with some of that peach syrup in place of the simple syrup you would usually use, and it's really good. And it's also really good if you put it in an iced tea, and you can make like a peach iced tea. So I love that this is kind of like a 2-for-1 product. You get the peaches and then you also get the syrup as well. Most of these peaches I'm having, but since this big one is so large, I'm gonna cut that one into 4. Well, the battery on my scale died, so I guess I won't be weighing these out. I'll just have to do my best to estimate how much I need, which probably is not going to end well. I really feel like these halves are too big. Maybe I should quarter all of them. Yeah, I think most of these peaches are like twice the size of normal peaches. As I've skinned and pitted these peaches, I am saving all of the skins and pits in another bowl. I'm going to freeze these because I think that you can make a jelly out of the pits and skins. They still have a lot of flavor in them. And although I'm not going to do it today, I'm just going to stick them in the freezer, and then at a later date, maybe in the winter, if I feel like tackling that, then I will have those pits and skins ready. And if that works out, that'll be really great because then you're really getting like 3 products out of these peaches. Most of the skin for the peaches did come off okay, but for some of these peaches, I think the ones that were a little less ripe, the skin really does stick. And I'm not gonna get too crazy about it if I leave like a little bit of skin, but I'm gonna try and get most of it off with a paring knife if I have to. But I'm remembering now why I hate to blanch and peel things and always try to avoid it if possible, because it is really annoying and it does take longer than I always think it's going to take. I think I'm going to start with what I have in this bowl. It looks like I have more than is going to fit in my 7-pint jars, so we'll start with that and see how it goes. I have my sugar syrup in this pot and all the sugar has dissolved, so I'm just going to start adding these peaches, and we basically just want to heat them up a little bit, bring it back up to a boil, and this will soften the peaches, and then we'll be able to fit a lot more of them into our jars. While I'm waiting for those peaches to heat up in the syrup, I figured I would get started on the peaches for the jam. For the jam, I have a set amount of peaches that I know I need. So for one batch, I'm gonna need 4.5 cups of finely chopped peaches. So I can go ahead and get these chopped up in my food processor and measured out. And then if I have extra peaches, then I can try and fit them with my other canned peaches. I'm only planning on doing a single batch of peach jam, but if I have like a lot of extra peaches, then I might go ahead and make a double batch. I'll just have to see. I definitely had more than I needed for one batch of jam, so I decided to just go ahead and double it with whatever peaches I had already blanched, and I was just a little bit short, so I took 2 more fresh peaches and I just cut those up, and I'm not even bothering with taking the skins off of them because, like I said, I did make peach jam last year and I kept the skins on, and since we are finally chopping this in the food processor, that skin is going to be in such small pieces that I don't think it makes a huge difference in the texture. And since it's a very small percentage of the total jam, since most of the peaches were peeled, I wasn't going to bother with that. So altogether, that was 9 cups of finely chopped peaches. By this time, the peaches in my syrup had been warmed up, so now I'm just adding them into my jars, and I'm filling them, leaving a 1/2 inch of headspace, and just using a spoon to very lightly press them in just so that they would fit. I really want these jars to be nice and packed, because even with hot packing, the peaches will float to the top, and I don't want there to be too much extra space in there. But I'm also trying not to just like mash them to pieces since they are softened at this point. So just enough to like fit that last one that's sticking out of the top into the jar. And then filling the rest of it with syrup so that the peaches are covered. Then I'm going to wipe the rims of each of these jars with a paper towel that has some white vinegar in it. This is going to help remove any of the syrup or food particles that may have ended up on the lip so that that doesn't hinder the seal. And I'm going to place a fresh lid onto each of these jars, which I've warmed up in some hot water. And I'm just gonna screw on each of my bands just until it's fingertip tight. Now I'm going to move on to the peach jam, and I'm just using the same pot that I used for my peaches in the syrup, and I didn't even rinse it out because it's just peaches and sugar, which are the same exact ingredients that we're using in our jam. I'm using this low sugar pectin, and I'm using 2 boxes of this, and I usually just follow the instructions that come in each of these boxes, and this gives you the directions and amounts for all different kinds of fruits for jams and jellies. So in addition to my 9 cups of pureed peaches, I'm putting in 2 entire packets of the pectin, and then in the beginning you also have to put a 1/4 cup of sugar, and since I'm doubling this, I'm doing a 1/2 cup of sugar, and we're just going to bring this mixture up to a boil before we add the rest of the sugar. I also added a pat of butter, which helps to reduce foaming, and later on we're also going to add a couple tablespoons of lemon juice. Last year when I made my peach jam, I did it without store-bought pectin. I just used peaches and sugar, and I don't know that I was a huge fan of it. It took so long to boil all of that extra moisture out of the peaches, which you really need to do in order for it to set without added pectin. And I think because it had to boil for so long, you lose a lot of that fresh peach flavor. And even though it's set okay, it was like just slightly runny, but still a pretty good jam texture. I think I'm gonna stick to using pectin for all of my jams because I just think you get a fresher flavor, which is nice because then you really get to taste the fruit. I'm just checking that this jam is ready to add the rest of the sugar, and what you want to see is that when you're mixing and you stop mixing, it is still boiling, and once you get to that point, you can add the rest of the sugar that the recipe calls for, and mix that in, let it come back up to a boil it for 1 minute, and then you can start ladling this into your jars to process. You can see I kind of have like bigger chunks of peaches in there, which I kind of like. I like when our jams have a little bit of fruit texture in there. And because you are boiling this and it's going to be processing, even though the chunks look very large, they will still end up being very soft. Now we can begin filling our jars. I am using 1/2 pint jars for jams, which is what I usually use because it's just a good size for us to consume. I think a pint would be too much for us. And these also make for really nice sizes for gifting as well, and I really like to gift our homemade jams to friends and family. So I'm pretty happy that I had enough to make a double batch this time because we'll have plenty for us to eat as well as to give as presents. And I also am really happy with how this peach jam came out this year. So I'm glad that I have plenty of it. After it's set, I think the texture came out really nice and the flavor was just a lot fresher than my peach jam last year as well, which I'm really happy with. So in addition to just using this on like toast, I also really like to use our peach jam in thumbprint cookies. Erin really enjoys like buttery sugar cookies, and making thumbprint cookies is a nice way to like make cookies but also add some of our homemade jams and home preserved goods. So that's one way I like to use this. Another thing that I've used homemade peach jam for is to make peach barbecue sauce, and that turned out really good. I did that this past winter and I used both peach jam and also syrup from candied jalapenos because barbecue sauce does have a lot of sugar in it, so those two things kind of took the place of some of the sugar, and the combination of those two was really good because you get that honey-like sweetness from the peaches but then a little bit of spice from the candied jalapeno syrup. That was included in one of my pantry challenge videos, so I will leave the link for that in the description box in case you're interested in watching that. Here is the result of my full day of peach canning. I ended up with 13 half pints of peach jam, 8 pints of canned peaches in syrup, and some little bonus things that I had as well. After I canned up those peaches in syrup, I had a bunch of extra syrup. So I canned up 1 half pint of the syrup. I would have done more, but again, I was out of jars. So the rest of it I just put in this quart jar, and we're just gonna keep this in the fridge for sangria and peach iced tea for the next month or so. And after making the jam, I had just a little bit that wouldn't be enough for another half pint, so I'm just sticking this in a container for the fridge and we can eat that throughout the week. So I think that was a very productive canning session. I probably preserved about 20 pounds of fresh local peaches, which I am so excited about. And all of this jam and these canned goods look so good, and they are going to be a really nice addition to our pantry. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.